Hey ladies and gents, Ben Pakulski here to talk about cyclical nutrition and really how to cycle your calories to optimize muscle gain without fat gain, and also conversely how to lose fat as fast as possible without hitting a plateau. So when you're eating, your body adapts really quickly. So if I eat the same amount of calories every day, my body adapts. If I'm in a caloric deficit every day, my body adapts. So if I'm in a caloric deficit, my body's shutting down my thyroid because my body's trying to go into preservation mode. If I'm in a caloric excess, my body's actually gonna have an upregulation of its metabolism, its thyroid function really quickly, usually in somewhere between 3 to 5 days. So the best approach to take nutritionally is to make sure you're always changing things up so you're taking advantage of those adaptation phases. So specific to muscle building, if I'm trying to gain muscle, I need to be in a caloric excess. Everybody's gonna admit that. There's no denying I need to be in a caloric excess if I wanna gain muscle. The problem is if I'm not training all the time and directing all those nutrients into my muscles, called nutrient partitioning, if I'm not partitioning those nutrients into my muscles often, a lot of those nutrients can be stored as fat. So what do I gotta do? I gotta make sure that I'm cycling my body in a high caloric state and then bringing it back down into maybe a caloric deficit. And cycling through those things in a strategic way that allows you to spend more time in a caloric excess, a little bit of time or just enough time in a caloric deficit to allow your body to not accumulate fat. And the next benefit of being in a caloric deficit is you're gonna actually get an upregulation of your body's ability to use those nutrients. What does that mean? So if I'm in a caloric excess all the time, my body loses its ability to use insulin, so it becomes a little bit insulin resistant. My body becomes a little bit hormone resistant sometimes. Leptin and ghrelin balance changes a little bit. So by going back into a caloric deficit, your body becomes more efficient at using the food you do eat, and you get an upregulation of utilization of these nutrients. So learning how to do all that stuff is extremely important to your long-term success. So many people get stuck in the routine of I'm growing, I'm gonna do this traditional bulking style where I'm just trying to gain as much weight as possible in the shortest amount of time possible, but the problem is I gain fat. So what's the problem with gaining fat? It's very estrogenic. So your body's gonna convert all your natural testosterone into estrogen. Any fat is also highly correlated with inflammation, which is correlated with high cortisol, which is what? We know cortisol is gonna be very bad to the muscle building process. So I highly suggest everyone literally everybody, take a cyclical approach to nutrition. So whether you're trying to gain muscle or trying to lose fat, the only thing that's changing is the amount of time you spend in each phase. So if I'm trying to lose fat, conversely, I obviously need to spend a greater amount of time in a caloric deficit. Well, how long? If I'm on a caloric deficit for longer than 3 to 5 days, guess what? Thyroid function shuts down, especially if you're doing low intensity cardio. So amplify that even more if you're doing low intensity cardio. So 3 to 5 days, I gotta figure out some way to either manipulate my training or manipulate my nutrition to get that upregulation of my thyroid function. So I'm constantly allowing my body to adapt and use fat for fuel rather than stagnate my metabolism, or obviously in the reverse, in the case of muscle gain, my body's gonna start storing fat. So if you guys wanna take maximum advantage of these things, I know it's a lot to talk about in a video, so I'm not even gonna bother diving deep on this. What I've done is I've put it all into basically a done-for-you program that allows you to know exactly when to switch phases, whatever phase you happen to be in. So if exclusive muscle gain is your goal, I've designed it perfectly so that you can check in as often as you want or as seldom as you want. Say, be like, hey man, I'm not gaining as much muscle as I want. Well, we'll tell you what you maybe need to push your calories up a little bit. We'll give you some troubleshooting, very specific to what you're seeing right now. If you're noticing, oh man, I'm getting a little bit too much fat, well, we've actually got some really specific calculations and algorithms that allow us to assess, okay, we're gonna drop your calories a little bit, or we're gonna change your phase of training, or whatever it happens to be. We're gonna make some recommendations very specific to the results you're seeing right now on an ongoing week-to-week basis. If fat loss is your goal, same idea. We're gonna tell you, hey, you need to do a bit of a reset here, give yourself a bit of a calorie bump, or hey, you're doing okay, you're seeing regular progress, stay doing exactly what you're doing until there's a plateau. You should never see plateaus in your life. There's no reason to see a plateau. If you know how to manipulate the minute variables, whether it be caloric manipulation or exercise stimulus manipulation, biochemistry, all these little manipulations should prevent plateaus. Plateaus are a thing of the past. Plateaus were written about in the 1980s for guys who really just didn't know how to manipulate nutrition or the chemistry of training. So we're gonna teach you guys all that stuff in the honestly best put together cyclical nutrition program ever. It's called the Incredible Bulk. And maybe it's not correctly named. It is made for people looking to gain as much muscle as possible. I just thought it was a cool name. But it's also made for people who want to lose fat as fast as possible. It's a really, really great program. I highly suggest you check it out. And if you guys want to check it out, hit the button below and we'll take you to that page.